Hey Spuddies, Potato McWhiskey here, and welcome to Tower Dominion, which has quickly become my favorite new tower defense game. It's only out since the 8th of May 2025, so it's actually really not that old. About a month and a half old in terms of its release. I can't remember if it's in early access or if it's in full release, but it's actually an extremely high quality tower defense game for a variety of reasons. So right here at the start of this video, this game gets the Potato McWhiskey stamp of approval. 100%. If you are into tower defense games, if you like tower defense games, Tower Dominion is a hard recommend for a variety of reasons. Okay, first reason here is it's actually relatively well competently put together. Okay, it's not like, you know, the most advanced settings options or whatever, but it does the job, you know? It shows you enough. You got input options, you got sound options, graphics options, all that sort of stuff. You got a codex. This is important for your metagame progression because as you play the game, you're going to unlock things. Like, for example, if I re-roll 150 times over all of my games, I will unlock Captain Scarlet. There's a bunch of heroes that I've already unlocked. I think you start with these two unlocked automatically. You know, if I build 3 howitzers, I'll get the Master of Ordnance. There's also a bunch of different enemies and buildings you can unlock, right? If you win 6 expeditions, you unlock this. You know, I've already got this unlocked, but I've never seen it before. Whole bunch of really cool stuff that you can unlock. Some of them are like hero or faction specific. If we go ahead and start a new game, you can see the Iron Dragoons. They have an incredibly strong central base and they send out a lot of infantry to fight their enemies, whereas the Lions of Ravelski, they send out their heroes to fight. They personally fight on the battlefield and they're more about building buildings and sending out sort of different kinds of genetically modified soldiers. Then the Paragon Assault group is very much so more of a techie, tactical sort of group. I'm a big fan of the Iron Dragoons. I've won a level 3 expedition with Sergeant Gertag, who I really like. Very cool. So there's 3 factions. They all have unique mechanics, unique abilities, unique technologies, all that sort of stuff. There are multiple difficulty levels in this game. You've got difficulty level 1, and basically what that means is you're going to have 25 waves. You're going to have 1 entrance to your main base, and the enemies aren't going to get that strong over time. Whereas in the, difficulty 2, you're going to have 28 waves with 2 entrances to your base, and then on the 3rd level, you're going to have 3 entrances with 32 waves. And we finally just reached now, sort of playing it solo, we've just reached this level, where you've got 35 waves of extremely difficult enemies. And then of course you've got Frontier mode, and you've also got, I believe, Endless mode, where you could just continue to fight afterwards. So of all the heroes and stuff, like Marshal Tander is very strong in supply production. I actually really like Sergeant Gertag because he has his gives his headquarters +1 range, plus 20% damage and HP, as well as a 10% repair every wave. He also has a special turret on top of the HQ, which increases the damage of the HQ every wave. So I think I'm gonna play Sergeant Gertag again because he just has like a particular style that I really like, where you place you play around this central fortification building. So if we take a look at the central fortification building, it has first, if you've played sort of some of the newer roguelike tower defense games, you've probably seen this sort of system. You get these sort of directions you can expand, you get tiles you can place. I think this game actually does a really good way of making this a very interesting system, in that every direction, or every rather than just randomly getting a piece, randomly getting your expansion, you actually get a piece, you choose where to place it, you choose how to orient it, and you can re-roll it. And then there's certain abilities that interact with re-rolling. So I think this is a really tightly designed roguelike tower defense game. Now I'm kind of looking over here, and I can see that the total number of enemies that are going to be coming at you are going to be divided between all of the entry points. So, there's 5 entry points, which means they're going to distribute 20% of the monsters between each entry point, but that means 40% of the monsters are going to be coming from here. So I'm going to add an extra entrance here to push these guys to to asynchronize their sort of arrival. There's a couple of other things that I want to talk about. So this building, I can actually upgrade it with corner strong points. I can get these heavy Vencedors. They currently have the dual Durandal cannons, and you can kind of see here the stat effects that are affecting it. You don't need to worry about like the the stats or whatever, but this is a dual Durandal cannon. It does 60 damage, fires every so whatever often, yada yada blah blah blah. It hits up to 3 enemies with its explosion. I'm going to add the heavy Vencedors. I could add the operations room, which would buff up the health of my Grenadiers. The problem with the Grenadiers, right, they spawn every 8 seconds, but they'll choose a path to go down sort of seemingly randomly. I think they choose whichever path has the closest enemy. But the problem with that is that I just don't think it's as strong as 4 guns firing. Like, don't get me wrong, this is a lot of infantry HP, especially if we can get a lot more Grenadiers coming out. If the Grenadiers kind of, I just don't think leaning into the infantry stuff is particularly strong. So I would rather go for weapons. So I'm going to grab these heavy Vencedors, especially because we are playing Sergeant Gurtag, who gives +1 range to these abilities, which means that they can see a lot further than they would normally be able to see. And they're also actually fairly decent against air units. You can see here they've got an 80% damage boost against air. 60% of that is coming from the, or 50% of that is coming from the tower's innate ability against air. Okay, now, we can also get these barrage LMGs, and I think I will. We want our capital. The strategy that we're going to be going for this game heavily revolves around using the main HQ as an incredibly robust defensive location. So we add these barrage LMGs. They're pretty decent against air as well. They're also pretty decent against shields, but they're just kind of all around lots of DPS. So let's go ahead and we've kind of prepared now. We've only got 100 supply left, 25 recon, and 10 tech left. We can't really buy or upgrade anything else, so we're going to send this first wave. You can see there's some air units, there's some land units. They're coming from all directions, and our capital, there's our Grenadiers running off that, by the way, down there. Our capital did a pretty damn good job. Now, every wave, you're going to get to choose a bundle, and these bundles are going to dictate your development, right? So, for example, if I grab the Bastion, this is an incredibly powerful and heavy position that does a lot of damage in 4 cardinal directions, but it's not particularly good against, like, it's good in very niche situations. And then I can also get, this is like a perk, it's a doctrine, they're called doctrines in this game. So if I have a Warwolf, which I can't remember what a Warwolf is, I'll get +10 recon, which is this resource up here. It's the one that you use to reroll the zones when you're placing. Or I could get 10% damage and HP on my HQ. That seems really good actually for a HQ heavy play. Or I could go and get 300 supply on this turn. I think the 10% damage and HP on the HQ is really going to sort of pay itself off over the course of the game, particularly because we are going to be going for the Durandal cannons on this HQ building as well over time, whereas the money would have been incredible, but you know, you got to do what you got to do. So let's send another wave. Perfect, right? The first few waves are going to be relatively easy. On rerolled, buildings will gain 0.5 damage, so this would actually also give me a reroll, so then I could add 0.5% damage to my whole thing. This strategy that we want to go for kind of relies on getting a lot of early supply, but we also want a lot of Miradors if we can. Miradors are very, very strong for the strategy that we're going to be going for, which involves heavily relying on your HQ. The Miradors can buff up your HQ. On the other hand, +100 supply right now gets me closer to putting the Durandal turrets on my HQ. Then we have another zone that we can pick, and we have a couple of choices in how we want to develop our different defensive directions. So for example, down here, I could look to merge these 2 paths into a single battlefront. Basically, every path that is not connected to another path that comes from your HQ is a separate battlefront. And you can make the choice to connect those battlefronts and minimize the number of entry points. Certain abilities will scale based on the number of battlefronts you have. However, merging battlefronts and entry points gives you a lot more control of where enemies come from. So it might be worth it to consider that as a move. For example, if I were to develop a path that comes along like this and goes up this way and loops around and connects to all of these, enemies would all come from the same spot and sort of loop around and stuff like that, which would give me a lot of potential. I'm going to go for more of a split path strategy here. I'm going to keep my paths separate. I'm saving up for these Durandal cannons. They're going to cost me a lot of supply. You get a little bit of supply of killing enemies. You mostly get recon from passive upgrades. We could get a little bit of recon if we wanted to pretty soon. So while you only have 1 Warwolf position, you get +10 recon production. That's really good. 25% health for our HQ is really strong, especially on top of the fact that we already have 10% HP. So I'm going to go for this. And now we sort of want to start thinking about, can we get our hands on a Warwolf to get that 10 recon per turn? Because that means we're going to be able to do more rerolls, have better control of the layout of our maze. Yeah, you can see our fortress is relatively strong, but we are getting to the phase of the game where, you know, enemies are going to be getting a little bit harder to stop. So control of inventory plus 20% supply production. That's really good. That's going to give us an extra 20 supply per turn. And if we can get base supply production up, that'll improve as well. The scout hideout is great because it can detect camouflaged units and it's a relatively long range, and it also scales off of neutral buildings. So we'll go ahead and grab that. We are still saving up for the main Durandal cannons. I think this entrance here is very, very close to the main base, which means flying units kind of pop out here and then go straight for it. So I want to kind of push these guys a little bit further away. We're going to try and make a big flat sort of area. I might try to get this to loop back this way, try to get this to maybe like loop up this way while this loops down or something. You know, we'll figure it out. So when you discover neutral buildings, you get 15% damage for the next wave. I need a werewolf, so that's what I'm looking for. Buildings adjacent to a neutral building get 15% damage. This is really good with scout hideouts, so I'm going to go ahead and grab that supply too. That's going to be a little bit closer to those Durandal turrets, which are going to buff up the main. We'll go ahead and hit the next turn. We've got flying enemies coming in. The grenadiers are being sent out. Perfect. All right, we're seeing pretty good defensive fortifications. They got a little bit close over here, so we might want to consider pushing this back. A bastion. Plus 10 infantry HP. This makes your grenadiers stronger at pushing. The Imperial Barracks actually helps scale your main base as well. It can be quite good at defending, so we could go for that. Also, I like the 200 supply, so I'm going to pick that up. Probably sometime during this wave, we can add the Durandal turrets to the top. I'm going to make this entrance come back this way, I think. Or do I want you to come this way and then go out like that? You're the closest, so I'm going to push you out a little. Plus, we got a neutral building over here. Very nice. So this one is plus 50% HQ HP if we are adjacent to it. So that'll be something we'll activate in a moment. I'm going to add these Durandal cannons. They will do a lot of damage in a relatively large AoE, so we're going to go ahead and send a wave. This is a threat wave, which typically is going to have something like Mimikos. These are horrors that will divide into multiple smaller creatures when they die. And then also the Devisicor, which is a high detection or requires detection. So we can get an extra 2,000 health on our base. That's extremely good. Although we do want a werewolf for the A50 simple stock. So what do we value more right now? Do we want the 200 supply to push up the health of, or push up the economic or here, or do we want the 2,000 base HP? I don't think base HP is as important as getting this werewolf up plus recon income. That recon income is going to come in really great for us, particularly because things like scout hideouts require recon income. So we definitely want the werewolf. And I'm trying to remember if this is the building that likes to be, yeah. So it gets 100% damage and +1 range if it's adjacent to the HQ. So we're going to go ahead and cancel that and think about where we want to place it. There's only +1s or 0s. The higher up you place a tower, the more range and damage I think it gets. So you can see here on 0, it has pretty normal range, pretty normal damage, 31. But if we put it up here, you can see that range is huge. You can see how far it can reach. It does not get a damage boost, but certain abilities will scale off of height. So for example, this thing will get a 30% fire rate and reload speed boost if it's at height 0, or we can give it just +75 damage and +1 range if it's already high, which seems quite good. So I'm going to put this on 0 height, right? I'm trying to think. I feel like more enemies are going to come from the north side, so I'm going to put it right here. And then I'm going to, yeah, we'll give it easy access eventually. You can press tab to see the upgrade level of your buildings. You can press shift to speed up the game. Let's go ahead and press space to send another wave. You can see this is like a mortar cannon. It does AoE damage for you, which is awesome. We're taking, yeah, I think nothing has touched our HQ just yet. I think we're pretty comfortable. That werewolf is adding the +10 to our recon production, which is great. Okay, 10% more building HP is good. Platforms are good because it allows you to increase the height of an individual tile. The recon is kind of appealing to me here because those scout hideouts are actually quite good, especially if you use them. Oh, hello. Okay, so this is where we could in theory merge these two areas together into a single entrance, or I could have more enemies coming from this far away point, which I don't necessarily disagree with, because I already have a turret up on this side that's hitting this area, so that's kind of cool with me. I'm going to take this scout hideout and I'm going to place it adjacent to the Advanced Steel Factory for the HQ 50% health upgrade, so I'll put it right there and we'll leave that as it is. It doesn't have the most amazing range. You usually want to put these up high because they have a special ability here called Farsight, which means they get +2 range per height level, so this would be out to +6. So it would basically cover the entire map right now. But I want to use it to activate this building because this guy actually scales off of neutral buildings, +5% damage per activated neutral building. Plus it also has this weapon here, which does relatively good damage against things like shields, not so good against flying. Just a pretty decent weapon. I can put a large squad in there. The next thing that we want to build is the officer's quarter. And you kind of just want to put this somewhere out of the way, like here. This is going to, like a second HQ building, it's going to give us some really interesting upgrades. For example, we can get the chaplain here, which gives an extra 15 infantry HP, which is extra health for your grenadiers. HP for infantry, for grenadiers in particular, is basically damage. They will do more damage to the enemies that are coming in. Signal operator will give us recon production, which allows us to develop our scout hideouts a lot better. Field medic will upgrade our infantry. And then what we really want to get to is the underground train. This gives all HQ weapons a 50% rate of fire boost, +1 range per battlefront. Okay, so if we have 4 battlefronts, that's +4 range on our fortress, and it gains 200% HP and it repairs 15% of its health per wave. So this is what we want to get to. So I'm going to go signal operator for that recon production so that we can get better scout hideouts. And then I'm going to go for superintendent to get the blueprints. And it's also relatively cheap compared to field medic, and we're not relying on our grenadiers. And then I'm going to go to the underground train to get the 50% rate of fire boost and the extra range. So perfect. Let's build the officers' quarters. We will just hold on to our cash. Now imagine this building with an extra 4 range. Think of how much of the map it's going to start to cover. The more range you have, the more range covers a larger percentage of the map. It's kind of crazy, actually. Okay, sick. We took out that thing. Let's see, each building adjacent to at least one other building gains a 5% rate of fire boost. That's not bad. We could get Triumphant Conquest, which is 15% damage. I like the idea of the supply and cheaper scout hideout costs, because I believe that actually scales with upgrades too. Yes. So not only will it be cheaper to build the actual hideout itself, all of its upgrades are cheaper too. Now we've just revealed another threat. We're going to start getting camouflaged enemies, which requires us to think about our next step here. I'm going to start getting myself some of these miradors, and on 0 height, they have the underground depot ability, which will give them 50% damage in range and +2 range if they're at height 0. So quite good, the underground depot. Special reinforcement otherwise just doubles their DPS at the base level. I like the underground depot, although we do want the special reinforcement because we want the ability for this to detect enemies. So this one I'm tempted to put up fairly high right here, where it's going to be able to use its fighting ability to hit undetectable enemies. I could also put it here. I could go special reinforcement, logistic reinforcement. That would give it a 300% DPS boost plus extra reload speed, means they get firing again faster. And then close support would give the HQ HP damage and repair. So I think that's the pathway I'm going to go. I'm going to go for special reinforcements. These guys are going to be able to detect camouflage. I'm going to give them logistics and then close support. But yeah, we need to watch out for those stealth enemies. They'll be relatively obvious which enemies are stealth. You can kind of see them here. They look kind of translucent, ectoplasm-y. Perfect. Oh, another 10% cost reduction on the scout hideout. I think you can get up to -30%. It's really, really good. Aha. Okay, so we actually got a blank tile here, but it's flat. So while this is kind of cool, I think I would much rather actually reroll here for something with a path on it so that we can, like for example, this spawns flying units pretty close to the base, so maybe I could want to turn those away a little bit. Maybe that would be good. It also desynchronizes these guys so they don't arrive at the same time. I probably want to extend this path eventually too. Now, I want another mirador over here. This one also special, reinforcement. We want logistic reinforcement as well. Taking our time. In the early game, you don't get a lot of money from killing stuff. In the late game, we're going to get a ton of money. The setting up for that is not a terrible idea. You can see these cloaked enemies are quite hard. Now, grenadiers do a pretty good job of cleaning them up, but they're not perfect. Okay, nothing actually managed to touch our HQ. That's really good. And we have cleaned up the enemy. Awesome. 20% upgrade cost reduction. Oh man, look at that. And we got the tier 3 scout hideout upgrade reduction. Beautiful. So now we can actually get the large squad relatively quickly. Let's go ahead and grab the signal operator. It's going to be 8 recon production per round, and we'll save up for the superintendent. We are not taking enough damage that we need to worry and keep pumping up our DPS. We're actually in a position where we can chill a little bit. We are going to take a little bit of damage this round as some enemies do make it to the bastion. That's fine. I'll start speeding up the waves, I think. Awesome. So the Omega Emitter, that's a new ability. I've never seen that one before. It's a question of, do I want 200 supply in a light mortar position, which I don't think is a particularly amazing building, or do I want 100 supply and a building I've never used before? I do like the idea of lots of supply, so I'm going to grab that light mortar position. I may not ever even place that. I think we have kind of committed to having a lot of the enemies come from the sort of the north side of the map. So I'm going to put a fork in the path here, increasing the number of entry points. We also got a long range scanner over here, which is going to give us recon production. We are going to want to get that online pretty soon. First, I could spend 39 recon to double the DPS of this scout hideout, or I could spend 39 recon to get this active on a tier 3 tile, and then I could get the Farsight upgrade system, which is going to give it like an outrageous amount of range. So now this thing is on super Overwatch, just helping all over the map. Not with a particularly high amount of DPS, but with a significant amount of DPS, and it got me +8 recon production by activating that neutral building. Right, let's head into our officer's quarter. We're going to grab Superintendent. That's going to give us some blueprints. The Mirador is key to our strategy. The Mirador, again, it's all about that Mirador. We are going to be doing a very heavy Mirador strategy. Our bastion here, the main headquarters, is basically going to be surrounded with Miradors. So now our goal is to save up for the underground train, as this is going to make our HQ become pretty unstoppable. We'll go ahead and send a wave. I'm going to slow it down because I do typically play the game at the higher speed, but I find it's a little bit more dramatic if you can kind of see the enemies coming in. Like, we're having a lot of trouble stopping these stealthed enemies because I don't have the upgrade that allows my HQ to see stealth yet. There is an upgrade that allows that, but I don't have it. And it's not guaranteed that I will get it. So we can get a sturdy bunker. I think this one, the Immortal Fortress, 25% damage and rate of fire for the HQ. This leans heavily into our current strategy. Yes, we do get a second Werewolf position, which we don't necessarily want because we get the +10 recon, but this could be placed in like the final round if we wanted a little bit of extra DPS. But for now, I wish I could just like middle click this or right click this and say, hey, like I'm kind of obsoleting this. I'm putting it into my sort of discard pile that I don't necessarily want this. I think that would be something that I would quite like, is just to remind myself that I don't want to build this, because I might forget that later on in the game. And I really like it when a game gives me tools to organize my thoughts in the game's mechanics. But otherwise, like, you know, just remember, bro. So we've got 580 supply. We need to get 1100. So let's go ahead and send the next wave. Perfect. We're taking out the stealth enemies. And you can see, man, like this HQ building, it does so much work. Like, it's crazy. Mirador efficiency. So we are going to be building a lot of Miradors. So getting that buffed up is actually pretty good. Fieldworks is great if you want to buff up your infantry, your grenadiers. Let's see. Cheaper werewolves, we don't necessarily care about that. Extra base HP is good. I think of all the things, we're going to be building a lot of Miradors in the long run, so I think making them more efficient is a good idea, right? Faster damage, faster rate of fire, faster reload speed. That is just overall more DPS. If we kind of take a look here, you can see rate of fire is 10% faster. It's reloading 35% faster. Great. Okay, we have a zone expansion. I need to think about this path here is a little bit too short for comfort, so I'm going to make it slightly longer. We've got a supply point here. Let's put a scout hideout on there. That's a +2. Okay, +2 is not bad. We will also get that the Farsight targeting system. This is why I love these scouting. They're great for activating these. And they scale off them too, which is awesome. I've always really loved towers with long range. The ammo depot is kind of an interesting building. So it gives adjacent buildings a 20% fire, 20% damage and rate of fire, and you can upgrade it to create defensive mines. You've got 2 defensive mine levels, or you can buff up its actual buff. It can make this even better. So this is why the ammo depot, really damn good. So you can give it like, I think you can get up to 40% total buff or 30% +2 range. And I might go for the 30% +2 range because typically the biggest limitation for your main headquarters is its range. However, I'm not going to build the ammo depot this turn because I'm very close to unlocking underground train. So I want to save my money for that. So we'll go ahead and continue to save our resources. Now, this is a particular strategy where we rely heavily on our main headquarters. If we win this round, or if we finish up, I'll briefly take a moment to show you some of the other strategies that are available. And you know, who knows, if the video does really well, we might even do a follow-up. Okay, perfect. 1100 supply. There's another level of Mirador efficiency. Cheaper Miradors is also really good. Tight ranks is extremely good. That's gonna, remember, that applies to our HQ. I do think Mirador efficiency, man, this is actually 2 really hard choices. Grenadier production is really good. Cheaper Miradors is really good. I think I would prefer my Miradors to be more efficient, and I also like tight ranks because that's going to scale. Like, this should already have it. Or, no, it's 1 building away from getting that benefit, so even more just leaning into this. So, look at the range of this guy. Okay, look at these various weapons. Each weapon has its own unique range. You can see the dual Durandal. Right? But roughly, they're all just about reaching this little cube here, right? Boom, I get the underground train. Look at that, dude. It went from reaching just about this cube to reaching out to here. And every single path tile that is lit up right now, that's DPS that we're doing that we weren't doing before. So that's really important to consider with this HQ-centric strategy. I mean, look at those turrets just annihilating in every direction. Now again, the big thing that we're missing is the ability to see camouflage with our HQ. That's going to be the biggest thing holding us back. Eventually, now that we've fully upgraded our HQ, it's probably going to start happening now, we're going to start moving towards the Mirador support. So an extra 500 supply here. Cheaper upgrades and also base supply production is quite good here. There's enough rounds left in the game that this would be quite useful. The upgrade costs reduced by 20% this wave is relatively weak versus the huge injection of supply. So if we think about this, right? It would take 10 turns minus 20%, so let's say 9 turns for this to pay off compared to this, right? And there's about 20 turns left, so I think in the long run, this just about beats out the first batch. But then this also has plus 100 supply in it. I actually think that this is a better move, but I am going to go for the supply production because we already have modifiers for supply production, so I think it's kind of a fun way to play. I'm going to attach more entrances up here to the north. I want a lot of enemies coming from the north. That appeals to me as a strategy. I've got 700 supply in the bank. Let's go ahead and upgrade this with close support. That's going to be 15% damage on the HQ. Okay, you can see here 29 damage on this. We go ahead and hit this, and now it is 32 damage. So not a massive amount of damage increase, but that close support adds up over the course of the game. And now it is up to 34 damage. So every Mirador we add here is going to add about 15% damage, 30% HP, and a 5% repair. So this is going to slowly, now that we can start building our Miradors, we don't have anything else really to invest in. I don't see any neutral buildings that need to be activated. You're on the ground, so I'm going to give you a large squad. So you're going to do an extra 15% damage with 4 snipers. And hopefully those 4 snipers will do a great job holding back. So building doctrines are more likely to appear. Gain 1 doctrine among 2, plus a Mirador, that's great. Efficiency for our scouts is really, really good. I don't necessarily care about the sturdy bunkers. I'm going to go for the focused militarization. Getting more building doctrines for existing buildings to allow us to pump up the investments you've already made could be quite good. So yeah, oh, look at that. Mirador cost reductions. Beautiful. So now, upgrading our Mirador, placing them costs 20 less, and upgrading them costs 10% less. So that's just fantastic. We have a decent amount of detection on the map right now. So this particular one, I'm not going to go for the special reinforcement. I'm going to go for the underground depot plus the logistics of reinforcement. So these kind of are longer range, less versatile DPS. But that close support is still going to be extremely useful. Just placing down our Miradors. The DPS on this thing will slowly climb into insane levels. You can see the turrets are just, wait until I get that ammo depot down. I'll probably get my Miradors up first. Here we go, Mirador efficiency plus another scout hideout. That's an amazing combination. So let's take that. What I like about the scout hideouts is they don't take supply, which are used to upgrade most other buildings. It's a key point in their favor. I need you to go, yeah, you need to be like this guy needs to be a little bit further away as well. So we're just trying to spread out a little bit so that you can see all this blue area. I kind of want there to always be path in the blue area. So that's what I'm trying to achieve basically by spreading out my, like, it doesn't necessarily benefit me to spread out up here very much, but it does benefit me to spread up in this way maybe, or, you know, like out this way, maybe in this way, because I want everything to be in this path. Now, we fully upgraded the officers' quarters. We fully upgraded our main headquarters. There's a few buildings here that could take some upgrades. We're not rushing on that. What was I doing? Miradors. The question is, do I build a supply depot now? I think I do, because the baseline boost that it provides is very strong. Plus the extra +2 range is going to mean that we have an even more effective base. You could just see the raw DPS of this thing. Some suggestions for this game, I would love if there was like a show the DPS of a building, like just show how much ownage it's generating. It'd be cool if I could see, you know, the raw damage on each thing. But I gotta say, this game nailed it. I love it. This is one of my favorite tower defense games that's come out for a while. It's up there with that other one that I was playing by the Element TD2 people. What were they called? Axon TD. Oh my god, we can get another ammo depot. Now, I don't actually know if ammo depots stack. So that's actually a good opportunity for us to learn. So we've got one ammo depot benefiting here. We've got a new threat revealed. So I build another ammo depot. It does not seem to stack. Well, that's good news. So look out, they fall from the sky. These are drops from high orbit along the path with their allies. They have 3,000 to 600 HP with 4,000 to 5,000 shield. So getting anti-shield could be quite powerful here for us. We are going to want more Miradors. In particular, we're also going to want to upgrade our ammo depot. So let's do ammo depot. We could get another 10% damage for this place, or we could get the +2 range. Now, look at the range here. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Isn't it beautiful? It does not even reach out here. And then boom, +2 range. Boom. Now it reaches out here. beautiful. Beautiful coverage we've given this. And actually, I do think it could be worth it for us to place a second ammo depot because we could get the extra 10% bonus damage here. So I'm going to do that, but with this ammo depot, I'm going to get the defense in depth and then go for the 10% damage boost. So now this building is benefiting from a 20, 5, 30, 40% damage boost from ammo depots. It has 2 mine launchers defending it, and it's getting a +2 range boost. So this thing is just disgustingly powerful right now. I don't see a neutral building for us to build a scout hideout on, but I do think local supply, and we can add mine launchers to these things. I'm going to go for local supply. Now, one thing I wished is I don't know if these neutral buildings count as adjacent or not, but compact charges will give it +2 range and the ability to slow enemies. So that's actually quite useful. This is just a tower now that's also providing DPS and crowd control, which is really great. So that's why I love Recon and these guys. And you can see this ammo depot is now distributing mines. You can see those little red flashies. These are mines that this thing is just sort of slowly and passively providing defensive coverage to my base. Beautiful. Perfect. Oh, the retribution position sounds insane. It's really good against air if I remember correctly. Let's grab the retribution position. That sounds cool. Retribution position sounds like what I do with your mom. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm like this. I know why I'm like this. It's because I'm hilarious. All right, so we placed another building up over here. There's another 50 supply production. I don't have the resources to put a scout hideout there just yet, but that's fine. We're on wave 21. Let's add some more close support for the main HQ. DPS, it's up to 51 damage, so they're doing over 300%. They're doing triple damage. Plus 200% means triple. Plus 100% means double. So this thing is just eating opponents right now. It's got so much damage, it's crazy. It's just shredding our opponents. So this is one of my favorite strategies, is to play, and I've already played like a couple hours this game, like Sergeant Gertag, because he has his own special personal turret on top. Oh, a medium mortar position. That's kind of exciting. I like this. Plus it would give me another Mirador. I don't even know how many more Miradors I need, but I'm kind of excited by this idea. I'm going to take the scout hideout. I'm going to put it up here. That's a 2-hither. That's pretty decent. That's also going to activate that +50 supply production. I'm going to give it the extra range. Nice and long ranged. This Warwolf position could probably do it a little bit of investment. I don't think it necessarily needs to. It mostly exists for the recon in production from simple stock. I definitely want to keep upgrading my Miradors for close supply. That HQ damage, it's up to 216%, so it's over triple damage now. Really great. I'm going to keep adding Miradors around this bad boy. Also, I sped up the game, and you can kind of see the speed makes things go a lot quicker. But it takes away some of the drama, I feel like. You don't know if things are going to happen. We're getting now into the late game waves where you're going to get a lot of money for every turn. I do like the idea of getting platforms. That's going to give me a lot of control over where, when, how things are certain things are positioned. I really love this building position right here, or this tile position. That's going to give me an extremely high position for something like this retribution missile thing, so that it has a really wide arc and can hit a lot of stuff. Because on the flat ground, you can see that blue area is its range, but on high ground, look at that range. Like if I position this correctly, it's going to hit so much of the map, but we don't necessarily want it there just yet. We also have a industrial site here. I could put a mortar position to blast this road to activate it. It's only 100 cost. And the mortar position isn't the most important building, and mostly this is going to pay itself off after 2 rounds. So I think that's worth it. So we want to make sure our Miradors have the flags. And one thing I really love about this game is the upgrades actually show up on the building. So you can see the extra little green light appears. So if I do the underground depot, you can see an underground depot actually appears underneath. I could even give these guys long barrels, so he just does like extra damage. But the logistics reinforcement I think is better. And then we'll go for close supply. Boom, extra HP, extra DPS. Beautiful. We've got room for a few more Miradors, more close support. Awesome. I've got space for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Miradors now. But you can see even these enemies that are dropping from the sky are just getting shredded by the insane amount of DPS that's pumping out of my bastion. Even the enemies that are like dropping from the sky and normally would like eviscerate us. It just doesn't matter to us. We're just that strong. So we can get another light mortar position. We could get another 400 supply. I thought the first batch was a unique thing. Did we not already take that? Or maybe we didn't. I'll take the first batch. I love lots of supply. So another thing we could build here is the Imperial Barracks. If we were to put it on the corner here, it doesn't have a really great coverage, but if we added the secondary barracks, it would produce more grenadiers. It would provide pretty good defense against air units. And if we go for a support team, it would give the HQ damage and HP. We can also go for range, or we can go for heavy Vencedors, which are these turret things that are already on the corners, and that would just add more of them. Basically, giving better coverage. I don't particularly like this way of using these. I like to use them like, here's a great corner right there. So like, put this on this corner. Now that's a great spot for this, right? You go for gun holes. You've got 8 infantry blasting around. Well, that's not what we're going for. Right now we're trying to pump up the power of the main. So because this is on height 0, we will go for the underground depot to get the +2 range. Then we're going to go for the logistics reinforcement for the extra DPS. And then we'll go for close support so that the HQ gains 30% HP and 15% more damage. Boom. And we're going to do that again and again. And because this is already on 1 height, it doesn't need the extra range. Well, I mean, it would only get +1 range, so that kind of sucks some value out of this. We're better off just getting more defenders and then going for close support. Plus, also being able to shoot detection or undetectable enemies is great. Camouflaged enemies, rather. So you can see the number of close supports that my capital building is, suffering from or succeeding from is insane. We're up to nearly 400% damage on it. This is a strategy that I like to use. There is a guy who's actually arguably better at executing this because he starts with 5 Mirador towers in his stockpile. Like, he can use that from the start of the game. But this particular guy I really, really like because he has that +1 range on the headquarters, which really helps in the early game for actually reaching out and touching the opponents. And he also adds an extra turret to the top of the HQ, which I really like. So this is also really awesome if you get it early and you commit to having only a single Mirador. The HQ will gain +2 range and 20% damage. We've gone for a slightly different strategy, so this is kind of lower value. I think the choice between a scout hideout and 100 or 200 supply is very easy. We're going to go for the 200 supply there. I don't know why you would make a different choice. In terms of positioning, I think it would be good if we got this to be a little bit further away. I think it's a little close, especially with the range of the Citadel or whatever. I don't see any neutral buildings that need to be upgraded. You can see the medium mortar here. Built in the right position could hit a lot of stuff. It can't be built on the high ground, but it could be built here. Let's see. So extra range or less minimum range, extra damage and rate of fire per adjacent building. Adjacent buildings fire faster and gain detection. That'd be cool if it was next to the HQ. I don't think we can get it there though, because this needs to be on 0 and there's no 4x4 zeros. Unless we were to sell this tower right here and to put this, getting detection on our main base would be extremely powerful. So I think I am going to sell this Mirador to put the medium mortar position here because our main base getting detection would be really useful. I'm going to go, do I want short fuses or long? I'm going to go for shorter fuses so that it can hit closer things. I'm going to give detection to there. +8 range, +200, +4 targets. This would give us basically, Delta Wear upgrade would allow it to hit more enemies with a single attack, whereas the lateral pivot system would give it a lot of range and rate of fire. I'm going to go for the Delta Wear upgrade. So when it does shoot, it'll hit a lot of stuff if it's all grouped up. But more importantly now, the main HQ has detection. That is big. And you can kind of see, like, if you look at all these towers, right? Look at this, right? 3,000 damage. You've got 600 damage, 55 damage, 800 damage, 1,200 damage. You've got 800, 5,000, 42,000 damage. That's why we play the HQ strat, baby. I love this strat. It's a very fun strat. It's one of many strategies available to players in this game. I'm trying to remember what else buffs my HQ. The Imperial Barracks can buff the HQ. The Scout Hideout, not particularly important tab. Compact charges are nice. We'll grab that. I will upgrade my Werewolf. I'm going to grab easy access. That's going to be 60% fire rate and reload speed. I'm going to grab extra explosion radius and targets. Oh, it already has 15 max targets. I don't think it needs more. Whatever. And then we'll give it plus 100% damage and +1 range. Double if it's adjacent to the HQ. So it's going to get a hell of a lot of damage. Really good defensive building for your HQ. I've still got 1,000 money in the bank. I'm going to go ahead and build the bunker barracks over here. Now I can either go for grenadier production or gun holes. I'm going to go for gun holes. It's a lot of damage. I'm going to take the +1 range. That means my guns and weapons can hit a lot further. And then we'll eventually add the heavy Fenkadors. Now the Space Carrier support is awesome, don't get me wrong. It's a lot of grenadier production. But you can see even enemies that are getting dropped from space are just getting ripped apart by our Durandal. Enemies are getting closer, so we are going to need to start thinking about like these late game waves. But we should not be taking an outrageous amount of damage. Now, we took a little bit of damage. Don't forget, we heal a lot in between every wave. But we do need to start thinking about how do we get more damage on the field? And one of the ways are with bastions. Bastions are very, very good at getting DPS on the field. So I think a lot of the damage was actually coming from over here. So I'm going to add a bastion right there. So it's going to basically fire down this lane as enemies are coming, do a little bit of damage as they come around, and any flying units that cross this path, they'll get clipped. Now, we can give this 30% reload speed or extra damage per height. I'm going to go ahead and give it the extra damage from height. We could get a roof-based pulse cannon, which would be incredibly effective against shields, or we could get roof snipers, which would give this building detection and add a bunch of snipers like these scout towers that kind of have all-around overwatch. We could add ammo storage to double the DPS, or we can add a shooting floor to give us a bunch of the Protector M12s that are going to be shooting in the local areas. So this is going to add a bunch of DPS in this area. So this is what the Bastions really succeed at. They succeed at concentrating damage in a very small area for a relatively low cost. We're going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to go for the simple design on this one because it's only one high ground up, so it doesn't seem as important. And then we'll go for roof snipers and all that sort of stuff. So if I press tab here, you could use an extra upgrade. I'm going to go for the local supply. You also use local supply, that extra DPS boost. I think we're getting a 40% DPS. I don't know how many of these buildings neutrals I've activated. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It should be a decent DPS upgrade. I'll send the wave. So you can see these Bastions are going to add a ridiculous amount of firepower to our strategy. Now, the vast majority of enemies are coming up from this northern side, so that's something that I'm going to need to keep in mind. Let's add some roof snipers to these guys and a shooting floor. Perfect. 2 light mortars. We'll get a platform and a sturdy bunker. Platforms are great, don't get me wrong. We've got some new threats detected. I do like it when I've got a 4-way path thing. 4-way paths allow me to... This will allow me to dilute the enemy. So a lot more enemies are going to be coming from up here, which are going to go past a lot of my defenses. So that's really, really good for me. I could add a Puma position here. Puma positions are relatively good at anti-air. They're generally good all-around fighters. I think I'm going to go... Anti-air design is really good. I think I'm going to go for the more general purpose design with the quad barrage LMG. So it'll just do some light DPS in this area. It can't shoot behind it, but that's fine. It is at a height of 3, which is awesome, getting an extra range. But yeah, you can kind of see the HQ is... I wouldn't say that the HQ is falling off. It's just that it's not able to handle all of the waves on its own now. It really does need support. And you can see there's the sheer number of enemies that are coming from the north because of the number of entrances that are up here. So adding entrances in one direction and building heavily to reinforce that direction is actually a very viable strategy. So 20% building cost, but more expensive upgrades, and recon production is quite good, actually. Mirador expertise is quite interesting. Getting a blueprint is nice. I think I'm going to go for cheaper buildings, even if they are more expensive to upgrade. That's not a big deal. Space carrier support. I'm going to go for the heavy Vencedors and the quad barrage LMG. I'm going to build a retribution position. It's going to be facing south, like so. So anti-air damage, it becomes priority, or we can just give it straight up more damage. +2 range for Battlefront is crazy. Plus 50% damage, racks contain 10 missiles instead of 6. That means it wouldn't need to reload quite as often. Anti-swarm protocol would lower its damage, but give it a lot more targets and explosion radius and rate of fire. Forbidden explosives would just give it more damage and radius. I'm tempted by the interdiction protocol plus long burners and then forbidden explosives to be able to take out anti-air units like super easily with this bad boy. +2 range when you have 4 battlefronts is crazy. So let's do that. Look at that range, man. It's going to take out those flying enemies like nobody's business. All right, enemies are getting close up here, so we may need to start thinking about adding extra DPS to this lane. And there's a couple of different ways that we could do it, like mortars are actually okay DPS. Durandals are insane. I don't think we have the solo Durandal thing, so these are really strong DPS wise. This is a normal path. This is only too long, so I'm going to add a little bit of length to that because the HQ can hit it. I've got 1500 cash. Most of my buildings are already maximally upgraded, with the exception of this. I could save up for the forbidden explosives. 300% damage and plus 50% explosion radius is crazy, but it did do 5,000 damage last round. This would be crazy for this thing, especially for taking out anti-air. Alternative, I could put a light mortar right here and it would significantly help with this lane. I think I will put the light mortar there. I can get it +2 range. I will. I could give it detection, +1 target. It currently has 4 targets. Extra damage for adjacent buildings isn't terrible. I'm going to go for the detection, damage, and range. And then I can give it damage, rate of fire, and reload speeds. This is just straight up DPS. Or I can get it a big damage increase. So do I want to fire a lot or do I want to do a lot of damage with a single shot? I think I'm going to go for the fire a lot. Yeah, I think hammering just a lot of shells downrange is good. I would like another one of these Puma positions up here maybe. Although the Durandals are crazy strong. They do have a minimum range, but the amount of DPS that they can do. Also, they're really good if they're adjacent to neutral buildings. Let me see. Do I have any neutral buildings that provide actual buffs to... Sometimes neutral buildings will buff the adjacent building. Oh, here we go. It's not a bad spot for a Durandal. Next to a neutral building, we'll give it long barrel, +2 range, heavy payload, or Flareum shells. +1 target, -2 range. Oof, I don't want to spend the tech. Tech is very rare. I'm going to go for heavy payload, so 20% damage, +1 target, and bigger explosion size, so it'll be better at the AoE. And then we could go for Blessed Machine, which is a massive DPS target, rate of fire, and reload speed boost. Or the Claydon Cannon, which is damage, targets, and explosion. Probably get the Claydon Cannon. For now, though, the Durandal, it's doing the Duran job. I'm going to put a scout tower here, put a large squad on it, give them some local supply, because we need a little bit of DPS on this lane. Luckily, this guy went the long way. We just need like a little bit of extra DPS sprinkled around. We could get another Mirador. That would help with our capital's DPS. The decimation positions are incredibly good against swarms and stuff like that. I'm going to go for the Mirador because it's a relatively cheap, inexpensive way to add DPS to the map in the form of buffing up the capital with close support. We're up to wave 35. Let's get a Durandal over here. We'll give it the long barrel and the heavy payload. I will add a Puma over here. It's kind of DPSing these general areas. I will give it the general purpose abilities plus the hydraulic recoil. We'll give it a quad barrel as well. It's just kind of generally DPS. Currently, I'm feeling pretty good about the position that we're in. I want to say that we're doing okay. This thing is great when it actually hits something. But a lot of its shots seem to go rogue. But when it does hit something, it goes crazy. We've got a big ass enemy up here. It's like a big Tyrannosaurus Rex guy. 100k damage from our headquarters. That's crazy. Man, do I want the recon? I think I'm going to go for the Imperial Barracks. I would like even more enemies to be coming from this direction. So I'm going to keep adding more and more of these entry points up here because this is where I want them to be coming from. Okay, let's add a Imperial Barracks here. We're going to give it gun holes. We're going to give it range finders, and we're going to give it heavy Vencedors. I'm going to put a sturdy bunker right here on this corner too. It's a heavy Vencedor DPS, kind of concentrating firepower in there because we've got to deal with those Tyrannosaurus Rex ass looking guys. Trying to see where the weak points are. Right now air is getting through up here on this top point, so another Puma up here pointed northeast would probably do a lot of work on the Pumas. Enemies are getting in here, which is a problem. We've actually taken massive damage on the capital. Oh, we might die here. Damn! I thought we had that. I thought we had it in the bag. We did just unlock air command, so now we can make bombers with detection. The Dirium Spire, which is a neutral building. Damn, I thought we had that. I actually thought we were kicking ass there. But it's a pretty tough game. Even though we went so heavy into the HQ stuff, we weren't really able to make it. It seems like the HQ-based strategies can do really well up to tier 3. But just to like give you an example of how different each of these factions are, if I select these guys, they don't even send troops out. They don't have grenadiers, okay? Like this lady here gains extra blueprints. And higher tier blueprints are more likely to appear. This guy gets extra tech and an ammo depot. This guy's buildings just have extra range and a bunch of sturdy bunkers. You get an experimental pulse cannon. Like if we just jump in here, not only are the abilities and the fundamentals of the faction completely different, let me just place this, but the HQ building is completely different too. So this orbital relay, it doesn't attack at all. We can get discovery, which means we're more likely to find neutral buildings, or we could just get extra supply production. We can have buildings have more HP and more repair on the HQ, or we can get a bunch of extra recon production. It's a completely different game with the same fundamentals. There's even unique abilities. So like we've got the plasma fence here, this is the experimental pulse emitter. That's this guy's unique building. Autonomous excavators. Gain 1 charge system every wave. I don't know what a charge system is. Gain attack. Buildings adjacent to 1 charge system gain 10% rate of fire. Cool. Complete targets impact. So like it really is just a completely different game. Depending on which faction and which leader you're playing, what difficulty you're playing on. Obviously I'm failing this on purpose because I'm just curious about what the charge system is. For each adjacent charge system, a 5% rate of fire to the experimental pulse emitter. Oh damn. That's crazy good. Anyway, that was Tower Dominion, my most highly recommended tower defense game of 2025. Absolutely, there's so much to unlock here. I would estimate that there's potentially, what, it took me an hour to fail there. So if you're playing at a reasonable speed, high speed, you're probably looking at like 45 minutes a run. So you could easily pack in like 2-3 runs a night if you're playing quick. You're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 10 people per. You're talking like at least 30 hours of gameplay here for, what was it, $20? 16.99 euros. And it's even in a bundle right now. So absolutely go check out this game. I cannot recommend it more highly. I love you all very much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.